Okay.
Right, let's go home. William, you could sit at the front with that and it would look like you were driving.
No.
Oh, you're not sitting next to me and talk too much. Robin, would you like to go to sometimes if you get too hot, you just press it again. Because you think, oh my God, am I hitting something? Is that the front at the back?
I can't have a watch in that. Yeah, I had a lick and a fancy, as my mum used to call it, in some sparkling water. I thought, this is mad. This is either massively decadent or massively desperate, or a bit of both.
A bit of both. Dawn with Zoe. In a moment, we'll speak to a man who saved an elderly lady's life in Storm Dudley. First, let's get the latest from BBC Weather presenter Darren Bett. So 3 in a row, Darren.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Never happened before since we started naming the storms, but it's worth pointing out that we only started naming storms in 2015, and that was probably as a result of the severe winter weather that we had in 2013-14, where there was at least 12 major storms. But the idea is that naming storms aids the communication, gets the message across to people more easily, and helps them prepare for the storms as well.
But maybe it's failing, because surely we should have just been told we've got a stormy week ahead, not we've got Eunice, Franklin and Dudley.
Maybe.
Are they separate storms, or are they just one
separate
storm?
storms. No, they're separate storms, and you can't compare two storms and say one is worse than the other, because they rarely, if ever, affect the same area in the same way. Franklin, for example, has brought stronger winds further north across the UK than Eunice did. And we didn't have, Eunice had red warnings from the Met Office, very rare, never had one in the southeast of London ever before, but we had an amber warning from Franklin, and this was for Northern Ireland, because the strongest winds and the greatest impacts were expected to be a bit further north across the UK into Northern Ireland, gusts of 80 miles an hour. And Storm Franklin was different from Storm Eunice. The amount of rain it brought as well. Eunice didn't bring much rain at all, but Franklin has brought huge amounts of rain. 130 millimetres of rain in Lancashire, into Cumbria. Loads of flood warnings at the moment across England. We've had severe flooding as well as those very damaging and dangerous winds in Northern Ireland as well.
Is this caused by the jet stream colliding with something?
It's caused by the jet stream, so these are the high level winds about 9 kilometres up in the air. The jet stream bowls around the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere. It doesn't just stop across the UK, but the jet stream has been particularly strong over the past week. The winds have been over 200 miles an hour, and Storm Eunice, the centre of the storm, swept right over the UK. But the jet stream is moving a little bit further north now, but it's because this jet is so strong, because it's sitting close to the UK, that the jet picks up areas of low pressure, and if they're in the right place, they deepen, then they develop into storms. Eunice, for example, underwent what we call explosive cyclogenesis. It was a bomb cyclone, and by that I mean the pressure dropped very quickly in a short space of time. The definition, more than 24 millibars in 24 hours. I think it dropped about 40 millibars, so a severe storm, and it's all tied into the jet stream. The position of the jet stream is crucial, and the strength of the jet stream is crucial.
And crystal ball out, can you foresee the next couple of weeks? Are we storm free?
Well, after 1 o'clock, there are no weather warnings from the Met Office at the moment. Things may well change. The jet stream is a little bit further north. The storms are getting steered a bit further north. But we maybe need to keep an eye on what's going to happen on Monday of next week, because there's another deep low that's heading to the north of the UK, closer to Iceland. If it gets a bit further south, it could affect our shores. There's still some way to go in this storm season, if you want to call it that. If we look back at 2018, for example, we had a named storm in June. and that was called Hector.
Right, okay, thank you very much indeed. Great to talk to you. Darren Bett, BBC weather presenter. Let's speak to George Losman, who's an RAF veteran. And you found a woman in trouble in Storm Dudley, George.
I did, yeah.
So tell us what happened.
So we were leaving the house, myself and my partner, and we seen an elderly lady had fell at the side of the road. So we pulled over to check if we could help, and she'd got quite a bad head trauma. So we rang the ambulance and asked them how long it'd be to turn up. They said that they could be up to 2 hours, and we decided that obviously it was far too long to wait with the weather, with the bad weather coming in, so positioned the car around to shelter her from the wind and the rain, got some blankets on her, checked over her, and then asked the paramedics if we could take her in the car to the hospital. So we drove her to the hospital and she started to deteriorate worse then. And as we got her towards the hospital, she was going in and out of consciousness. And so yeah, we took her in, and the paramedics said that by bringing her in quick, it potentially saved her life. So it was just the thing to do at the time.
Well, amazing.
Had to help.
And I know you've had medical training. You've assisted medics on Chinook helicopters and rescued seriously injured soldiers and locals in Afghanistan about 10 years ago. So you were able to assess the need.
Yeah, that was right. It was a bit different with it being a civilian on this occasion, because obviously I heard from the lady afterwards, which was a little bit more close hitting, because it felt like having her call up and say thanks it was nice, but it was also quite difficult to deal with.
I'm sure. Now, how's she doing now?
Yeah, she's making a good recovery. I spoke to her family the other day, yesterday, so she is getting a lot better. So it's just got to hope and pray that she makes a full recovery.
I know that with smartphones now, the torch function is coming in handy when you're checking someone's pupils.
Yeah, just to check the reactions to her pupils. The doctor turned up and also done that as well. And luckily we had a doctor's surgery just literally down the road, so by the time we'd called the ambulance, the doctor turned up and gave a full check over and assessed that she needed to go to the hospital as well. So that's when we made the decision to put her in the car and take her straight away.
Oh, well, it's brilliant work. It's the gusts and gales were so high powered. There is quite a lot of footage of people being actually blown off their feet.
Yeah, I believe that's what possibly happened, because, like I say, in the northeast it was quite bad, and when we got there she was just on the floor. So I can't say exactly what happened to her, because when we was trying to ask her what had happened, she was quite unsure of how she fell and how she got the injury herself. But I'm presuming it will have been down to the storm, because it was really bad.
Thank you very much for joining us, and again, congratulations on doing a brilliant thing there, George. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Take care. George Losman, RAF veteran who saved a woman's life in Storm. Jeremy Vine here, talking about the storm, whether it's Dudley or Eunice, Franklin, and the person who helped you. Emma Heath in the Peak District, who would you like to shout out to?
Hello, I just want to thank my neighbour Jessica. I live in the Hope family, Hope, and we had water gushing down into our gardens, and we had 3 steps to the front door, and the water was above the second step, and our neighbours came out with all sorts of containers, wheelie bins, mop buckets, to try and empty the garden. And then 2 amazing men, Chris Ridgway from Castleton and a farmer from Robert Atkin, came and set up 2 pumps in our garden to redirect the water from our gardens away from the doorsteps. And then they went off into a field in the dark with their waterproofs and their head torches and spades. They found a tree that had fallen and sort of blocked a drainage ditch. And then they cleared that tree and then dug a 30-metre ditch to redirect the water away from our gardens. And I just cannot thank these 2 gentlemen more than they were just amazing.
But this is like something out of Marvel Comics. I mean, were they wearing kind of superhero costumes or what?
Well, they could have been. If I could have hugged them, I just could not thank them enough. They came with the 2 pumps and that was enough. But then when they went off in the dark, and then sort of dug these ditches in order to redirect the water away. And I was all set to be bailing water out all night, and within hours the water had gone. And they're just 2 amazing men. So that's Robert Atkins from Switchell Farm and Chris Ridgway. I'm really, really thankful. And I know my other neighbours, 3 other neighbours, are very thankful too.
Wonderful. Thank you, Emma. That's a brilliant story. Jean is in March in Cambridgeshire. Hi, Jean.
Hello, Jeremy.
I think we've spoken before, haven't we?
I think we have, but I can't remember what to say.
Well, maybe it might have been the weather. Now, you're elderly, you're on your own, aren't you?
I am on my own because my husband has gone to France to do some business, so I'm in my bungalow by myself.
Right. When you say gone to France to do some business, is that a euphemism? But no, he's away at the moment.
No, he's away.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he knows nothing about this, and I'm not telling him because he will worry.
All right, what happened?
Right, Friday morning, the wind was really strong. It lifted the felt and the ply off my high garage roof, threw it all over the driveway. A neighbour did come over, but obviously it's far too dangerous to be out there and try and do anything then.
Yeah.
So we just had to leave it. There's no way anyone could do anything. But on Saturday morning, it was fine, dry, no wind or not much wind. But I'm still feeling stranded. I think this wind is going to come again over the weekend. What's going to happen? You know, I'm just felt helpless. I thought, okay, the only person I can think to phone is a builder who has done work on our bungalow before, and his name is Lewis Jackson. He was here in 5 minutes.
Brilliant.
He had a look. He's up John's extension ladder. Went home, fetched his toolkit. Even though he was supposed to be looking after his children because his wife had gone to work, he was back. He fixed the roof. He took photographs to show me, reassured me. So this problem of garage roof is not really anything compared to what other people have had, and they've really suffered, haven't they?
No, but what great service from Lewis.
What great service from a young man who really, really helped me.
Brilliant. Well, he'll go far. Jean, thank you. Pay tribute to the British entrepreneur Jamal Edwards, who died yesterday morning very, very young at 31. You might well know about him. He was a monumental figure in the British music scene. He started his YouTube channel, SBTV, in 2006, the same year YouTube launched. So it was incredibly prophetic of him to realise that's the channel where everyone's eventually going to go to. And he basically used to film and upload videos of artists performing. And as a result of his work, he helped launch loads of careers, people like Jessie J and Stormzy. He was appointed an MBE for services to music in 2014. And as I say, we had the very sad news yesterday that he died very, very young. Among the artists who he helped at the very start was Ed Sheeran.
I was acting. It's a crazy thing.
Just take this to the post box. Just a simple folio.
You could fall for 1,000 things and hearts that would give you a diamond ring. When I fall, you see the best in me, the Joker. I've been played before. If you hadn't guessed, so I kept my cards close to a focus vest. But you called my bluff and saw through all my talents. And then you went all in, and we left together. And I know you think that what makes a king is gold, a palace and diamond rings. When I fall, you see the best in me, the Joker and the Queen. And I know you could fall for 1,000 kings and hearts that would give you a diamond ring. When I fall, you saw the best in me, the Joker and the Queen. The Joker and
Oh, beautiful Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift. And just a reminder, Ed Sheeran among those whose careers were launched by Jamal Edwards, who lost yesterday at the age of 31. Stephen Milton Keynes says, my friend Richard was the storm hero this weekend. We were fishing in these 50-mile-an-hour gusts, and Richard did everything for me, from putting up my tent to casting out my rods. I even managed to catch a car. I wouldn't have done it without
little romance when I wasn't expecting that. Time doesn't seem close. 3 kids up and gone. I wasn't expecting that. And the nurses they came, said it's come back again. I wasn't expecting that. Then you closed your eyes, you took my heart by surprise. I wasn't expecting that.
What a beautiful song. Jamie Lawson, BBC Radio 2 Smart Speaker Sounds app and 88 to 91 FM.
BBC News at 1 o'clock. This is Justine Green. Boris Johnson is to meet ministers and MPs to finalise plans to end all COVID restrictions in England. A report is calling for urgent action to help at-risk children in Solihull. And Storm Franklin has caused travel chaos for millions across the UK. A planned cabinet meeting has been delayed ahead of an expected announcement from Boris Johnson later about the ending of all coronavirus restrictions in England. Several ministers had already arrived in Number 10. A Downing Street source has suggested the Prime Minister was receiving a briefing. Others have indicated there's been a disagreement with the Department of Health. Our political correspondent Ian Watson is following developments.
The underlying tension also around the cost of testing. So, for example, who would be still eligible, what running groups would still be eligible for free testing, and how many people would have to pay for tests in the future. And this has been something of a political hot potato inside government. Now, it's well known too that President concerns about the multi-billion cost of free testing. There's also concerns with the devolved administrations as well who want free testing to continue during the first half of this year. So there's a question also about timescale.
The Queen is expected to hold a telephone audience with Boris Johnson this week following her positive COVID test. The 95-year-old is currently isolating at Windsor Castle. The Queen usually meets the Prime Minister on Wednesday. The telephone call would form what Buckingham Palace has described as light duties. An Ofsted inspection has concluded that a significant number of vulnerable children remain at risk in Solihull. The report was commissioned after the death of 6-year-old Arthur Lavinia Hughes, who was killed by his father and stepmother in 2020. Our Midlands correspondent Phil Mackey reports.
Emma Tustin and Thomas Hughes subjected Arthur to months of physical and mental abuse. He was beaten, starved and poisoned with salt. Recordings made by the pair and played during their trial caused a public outcry, which led to a national safeguarding review which will be published later this year, as well as the Ofsted inspection which came out today. The report has called for urgent action to be taken by West Midlands Police and all of the agencies who deal with at-risk children in Solihull. It says that too many face drift and delay because of a lack of resources and the loss of experienced staff.
A van driver has pleaded guilty to causing the deaths of 2 children by dangerous driving on the M4 near Newport. The 3 and 4-year-old's mother was seriously injured in the collision, which took place as the family travelled back from a birthday party earlier this month. Martin Newman, who is 41, is expected to be sentenced in April. The strong winds and heavy rain from Storm Franklin have caused widespread disruption across the UK. The rail operator Northern has said Rotherham Central Station will be closed until tomorrow, while there are delays on routes across the Pennines. Manchester Airport was forced to divert 9 flights. The River Derwent has burst its banks in Matlock. Simon Sugden lives in Ilkley in North Yorkshire. He had to be evacuated earlier this morning.
About 3:30 in the morning, I started ringing emergency services because I saw the water coming down the road from the canal. So the water's come down and then it's caused a landslide at the back of my house. I'm waiting to hear back from the council. I don't really know what's going on. I just hope to God they can save my house, but it's not looking good.
An interim report on a railway crash in Salisbury last October says one train passed a red signal because its wheels were sliding along the track. The Rail Accident Investigation Branch also found that leaves had not been cleared from the track that day because the process had been rescheduled. Investigators said rain and wind were also likely to have been factors in the accident. 13 passengers and a driver needed hospital treatment. A new study suggests that a diet high in vegetables may not on its own protect against the risk of a heart attack or a stroke. The research involved almost 400,000 people. Our health reporter Philippa Roxby has been looking at the findings.
There is good evidence that a balanced diet helps reduce the risk of many diseases, including some cancers, and 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day is a recommended part of that. In this study, people who ate more vegetables were generally healthier, particularly those eating lots of raw vegetables. But these people were also more likely to follow a healthier lifestyle, be better educated, and less likely to smoke. Experts say untangling the various factors involved in the link between diet and disease is a constant challenge, and this study doesn't change advice to follow a healthy diet.
In the city a short time ago, the 100 share index was down 14 points, 7,499. And the weather, a dry afternoon for large parts of the UK, with wind speeds easing throughout the afternoon. Highs of 12 Celsius in London and Cardiff, 11 in Belfast and 10 in Edinburgh. BBC News, it's 1:04.
I was playing Five Nights at Freddy's 6.
William, you can't scream like that, sweetheart, because I'll crash.
Yeah. So I gave you a heart attack.
I shit myself. Never mind a heart attack.
Yeah, nearly soiled your pants.
But not quite.
Nearly soiled your pants.
Finding it funny that I've nearly pooped my pants.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can be very slim looking, but you can still have a problem. It's a way of labeling a body.
More like heart attack.
But the areas where they carry most of their
That would be worse while they're driving.
Yeah, you'd have to fish the bus all the way home.
Yeah. Pop eye. Smooth moves.
And we're joined by Dr. Sarah Jarvis, Radio 2 CP. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
So, yeah, suddenly thinking so we'll save this particular medical incident for another day.
Yes.
I'm sure it's not recommended by most doctors.
There are indeed. So we started off in the 1980s with a much less catchy name. So toffee has taken off. But in the 1980s we called it MONW, M-O-N-W, metabolically obese, normal weight. So the idea is we have long known that apples, in other words, people who tend to carry all their excess weight around in the dress, are at higher risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes in particular than pears. And pears are the people, of course, who, I don't know if you remember the adverts which were, you can pinch more than a nose.
Oh, listen, we're all the same age. I remember
Of course. Well, of course, the interesting thing was that those adverts were a very long time ago, and actually they probably were talking to the wrong people, because the inch you can pinch is what we call subcutaneous fat. It tends to accumulate around your thighs, around your hips, and underneath your chin. Whereas intra-abdominal, or otherwise known as visceral fat, that's the stuff that is really nasty. So it's metabolized by the liver, it sends out chemical signals that lead to insulin resistance, and it wraps itself around your vital organs and your heart, as well as striking through the muscles.
I heard somebody say in a pub once, he's been the same belt size for 25 years. And I looked at him and he had the most enormous beer belly that was slim of hip. So he was 34 inches around the waist, but that wasn't really his waist.
No, it absolutely isn't. In order to measure your waist circumference, you're supposed to think as much. So you put your fingers, take your fingers on either side, and put the thumb just at the bottom of your rib cage, and on the side of it, and your first finger, your index finger, and you take a measurement halfway between those, and you measure, breathing out, no breathing in, and no breathing in, strict monotonous. I'm doing it. You breathe out, and then you measure horizontally, so parallel to the floor.
Okay.
And you measure your waist circumference there, and that's where you should be measuring your waist.
So a lot of folks are saying they've got 34, 36 inch waists, when actually all they're doing is every year they wear their trousers slightly lower.
I'm afraid, and unfortunately, actually some of these people in fact did have normal body mass index. There's quite a lot of puffy people, so they are thin outside, so their body mass index is in what we call the ideal range, which is 18.5 to 25. But because they're accumulating inside, that's particularly linked to your diet as well as to your genes, then unfortunately that's genes not genes.
You're wicked.
That means that you are at higher risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and so on.
Okay, I'm thinking that if you had in front of you a naked person who was toffee, you'd know immediately. This is not about how that they don't look fat. Actually, you see because they've got love handles or whatever.
The love handles, interestingly, are often, the subcutaneous fat. But you're absolutely right. If you look at somebody who's, very slim from the outside, and unfortunately, some people genetically are predisposed to this. So, for instance, there was a study which looked at two men at the same age, at the same body mass index, and they looked at the amount of fat inside and measured it in litres. One of them had 5 litres of fat inside, and the other one had 2 litres of fat inside, but they had the same body mass index.
Okay, let's talk to Mark, who's in Berlin. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Jeremy. What an honour. Thank you so much.
Well, you're 56, so we both had the best music, basically. We were both born in the mid-60s. There we go.
I'm 59 now, so my incident was at 56 3 years ago, yeah.
Right, I'm listening closely. What was the incident?
Jeremy, well, you'd appreciate it. I was a very fit duathlete cyclist, and actually I was competing in a local duathlon competition, which is running and cycling. And long story short, without warning, I collapsed 200 meters before the finish line with a sudden heart attack, cardiac arrest. And yeah, the doctors delighted in telling me afterwards I was clinically dead. But luckily, two of my competitors were doctors, and they did the necessary CPR, and the ambulance came, and I woke up 10 days later from an induced coma.
I'm going to take a guess, Sarah will of course correct me, that you had an existing heart condition probably since birth. Is that right?
No. There had been some signs back in 2012, but it was pretty much asymptomatic, I think they call it.
Oh my goodness. This is scary, Sarah.
It is scary. It's probably worth pointing out to people who listen that a cardiac arrest is not the same as a heart attack, but a cardiac arrest is often caused by a heart attack. So a cardiac arrest is where your heart stops beating, and one of the most common causes is having a heart attack, because of course if you have a big heart attack, and Mark, it sounds as if with an induced coma and everything else you had a really big heart attack. What happens is that the blood supply to the part of the heart is completely cut off, and what that can do is to cause that bit of the heart, sometimes quite large swathes of the heart muscle, to die, and that in turn can cause abnormal electrical rhythms, which is why people who've just had a heart attack are monitored so closely, because they're at much higher risk of cardiac arrest.
What did they explain it, Mark, or did they just say it was 1 in a million?
It wasn't 1 in a million. I think, Jeremy, the point is the warning signs were potentially there, but I wasn't looking for them. That's the thing. You know what I mean? I mean, I was driven to train and to push myself to the limit, and potentially there was something genetic there, and there was a kind of like, perfect storm combination. It was a hot evening, I was dehydrated, and it just exacerbated some of the symptoms.
Did you, let me just check this, because all 56-year-olds are now leaning into the radio. So you were taking on stress that would have been okay at 26, but you were 56. Is that fundamentally it?
Yeah, possibly. I've always driven myself a little bit too hard potentially when it came to sport. But in terms of the discussion you just had, I've got a body fat of less than 10%. If you put me on the scales, and and I look very slim, and the message I want to get out to everybody is being slim is not a guarantee of good health. I mean, I'm a massive fan of sport and keeping fit and not putting on weight, but there's no guarantee at the end of the day. Everybody, especially people who are doing sport, should maybe get their heart checked once every now and again, or do some simple tests to make sure there isn't a problem.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, Sarah. We do occasionally hear, often, it's the university rowing team, and one of the rowers just dies of a heart attack, and it's something that's in their body from the day they were born.
So that's absolutely right. That's sudden cardiac death, and that will usually be in relatively young people. That's why there are all these tests, and they talk about whether we should be having heart screening for people who start running marathons. Of course, professional athletes, certainly professional footballers, will get it. But Mark, I'm really glad that you brought this subject up, because the simple fact of the matter is there is no such thing as no risk. When I estimate somebody's risk of heart attack or stroke, I will tell them the size of their risk, and it will be lower or higher. It is never non-existent. And the point I often make to patients is, the fact is something may be unlikely, but do you know what? Every week someone wins the lottery, and the chance of that is much lower than your chance of a heart attack in the next 10 years if your risk is low.
Mark, thank you so much for your voice. You sound in great shape now, so really wish you all the best. And just before we play music, Sarah, I was talking to some cardiologist about a year ago who said, obviously this person sees many people with cardiac arrest and heart attack and so on. And I said, do they all walk into your office and they're all overweight, and obviously they were a walking heart attack, in the phrase. And he said 25% of them I cannot see an immediate explanation. And that really shocked me.
Yeah, I mean, of course, one of the things you may not be able to see is that somebody has got, say, familial hypercholesterolemia, which is inherited raised cholesterol, and it's the single biggest cause of raised very very, very raised cholesterol. You can either inherit a faulty gene from one parent or from both, and it's one of the reasons that if anybody is diagnosed with it, we try and ensure that they have what's called cascade testing, so other members of the family will get it. You can get little fatty deposits on your tendons, so for instance on your knuckles, on the back of your ankles, on the front just underneath your knees. But you can also, of course, get deposits just underneath your eyes, little white deposits. But a lot of people who've got high cholesterol won't necessarily have that. So that's one which can be a really important issue. If you've got a family history, it may be that you've got something like FH, but of course, actually, there was a study about 20 years ago now which showed that about over 90% actually of your risk of having a heart attack is down to what we call modifiable risk factors. So most people can do something about their risks, but you can't stop them completely.
Do stay with us, Dr. Sarah Jarvis, talking about the toffee condition, but we're ranging here, aren't we? The unexplained heart attack as well. This is new from Charlie Puth.
Yeah.
Charlie Puth, it's called Light Switch. So we talked about toffee with Dr. Sarah Jarvis here, and then we get into this whole thing of if you suddenly have a heart attack for no apparent reason, do you blame your genes, or is there always a reason? That's the question, Sarah. I suppose nobody has a heart attack for no reason.
Well, unfortunately, you can have a heart attack having led an utterly blameless life. If you consider that, more than half of the people in this country have cholesterol which is higher than the ideal, and some other underlying conditions, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, they can increase your risk of having a heart attack. if you've had preeclampsia, or you're a woman when you were pregnant, you had preeclampsia, later in life you are at higher risk because of the strain that you put your heart under then. Recreational drug use, all sorts of factors can increase your risk of heart disease. But as I say, the simple fact of the matter is sometimes it's just bad luck. And of course we mustn't forget, we can't see high blood pressure either.
And people getting diagnosed with diabetes or pre-diabetes when they think they're slim, is that an ongoing issue?
So let's not forget there is a fundamental difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is nothing to do with lifestyle. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition like lupus, like rheumatoid, and there your body's immune system turns on your pancreas. But you're absolutely right, type 2 diabetes is very largely to do with lifestyle. We can probably, it's more than any other risk factor, lifestyle factors, create more of your risk of type 2 diabetes than anything else. Being of South Asian origin does increase your risk. Being an apple rather than a pear, obviously. And then we have, of course, metabolic syndrome, which is where you have a combination of raised blood pressure, high triglycerides, low good cholesterol, and insulin resistance. And this again is this idea of this fat, this metabolically active fat inside, deep inside your tummy. And as those fat cells grow, they're sending out messages to the nearby cells, and those cells then divide and produce more fat cells, and that just makes your body less able to respond to insulin.
Right. About 20 years ago, I decided I wanted someone to look at my heart and let me know, is it furring up? And I went to a private doctor and I said, can you put a camera through my heart? And he said, anyone who does that is a criminal. And he put me on a treadmill and put those suction pads on my chest and everything, so it was fine. But, I mean, until you actually have a heart attack, you don't really know how much furring you've got, do you?
No, you don't, but of course the level of bad cholesterol, or the ratio of good to bad cholesterol in your system, is a pretty good proxy for that. There's also the fact that it's not just down to how furred up your arteries are, for instance, with smoking. That can make your platelets more sticky, and if a fatty plaque does rupture, then it's more likely to result in a heart attack. So it's not just those. We did, in the early days of statin, used to do a procedure called IVUS, which is intravascular ultrasound. And believe me, you'd have to be pretty dedicated to the advancement of science to want a probe actually put down inside your arteries. You can do calcium scans. Yeah, you can do calcium scores, but they're not entirely accurate either.
Mark is in Leeds. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Jeremy. Are you alright?
I'm fine. Now, what sort of condition are you in, my friend?
Well, I'm due at the doctor's today. I'm 5'8", I probably weigh about 18, nearly 19 stone. I've got no fat on my arms, no fat on my legs, and all my top half, I'm afraid, and my belly. And I struggle now, enough 47 now, to actually do things active that I did maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I'm really struggling. I'm finding myself out of breath a little bit.
I hear you. You know, I think it's the height thing is so unfair. I mean, I'm 6 foot, you're 5'8". The fact is that it shouldn't be the case that that by weighing 18 stone, you're less healthy than me. It doesn't seem fair, Sarah.
Well, it doesn't. But Mark, you know, I feel your pain. I'm 5'1". So I'm pushing it. I think if I say I'm 5'1". Now your body mass index, if you are 5'8" and 18.5 stone, is pretty close to 40. And what's really important is that the higher body mass index is not an absolute cut-off. You don't suddenly increase in risk, but basically the